my friends, have I come with sweets and spoils. A tasty treat for the kiddies when they have that overwhelming desire to spoil themselves, and the parents who have to tolerate the unbearable demands of a determined child. Today's story takes place near a collection of apartments within an unnamed city where the services of offering tasty treats would maintain its rounds long after the joys of summer have passed. Every Saturday evening, a vintage ice cream bus would come by this area, singing its disturbing melody that would never fail its purpose of luring every child from the apartments and onto the sidewalk streets. Such innocent and spoiled children that would line up, anticipating the warm greetings that would come with frozen treats in exchange for a small and fair price. And as the children swarmed the side window, they would be greeted by a young and handsome man who would come with a warm smile and a handful of requested ice cream cones. Vanilla for the young man, chocolate for the little girl, and strawberry for the shy one who was a quarter short. Even a swarm of hyperactive children had not affected the ice cream man's display of kindness and warming composure. Then after every child would have their hands holding a tasty treat, all the children would line up as the ice cream man would open the side door of the bus and be greeted as they would step into the wonders within the vintage bus and go on a short ride around the block while enjoying their tasty treats. A free service for the kiddies. So you're probably having skeptic thoughts about the scene. I mean, even though it's been happening for a month now, an ice cream bus that comes around in the evening, inconveniently around dinner time, selling ice cream on the streets when summer had ended about a couple months ago. Even with the cold weather making ice cream a bad choice for an evening treat. But if you were to take a step back and have a good look at the scene, noticing how it's the mothers who would join their kids when the ice cream man would come by on that Saturday evening. Maybe see why nobody is having a problem with any of this when they would see that gorgeous smile. Even with their kids stepping into a stranger's bus for a small ride around the block, which obviously seems out of the ordinary. Today, my friends, we are about to step into the shoes of a struggling father who had just moved into the apartments. A man who had went through a nasty divorce, got full custody of his son, and may teach us a thing or two about the joys of parenting. But when this father and son would entertain their curiosity when the ice cream bus would stop by the apartments, that, my friends, was when the father's skeptic concern and curiosity would find itself becoming a story that hides away an interesting horror show. Two days as a single father, and life was already becoming more of an unbearable struggle for Sonohara, especially with his son Tomoki. Even though Sonohara had gotten custody over Tomoki, raising the boy alone was not as simple as he expected. Like most children, Tomoki was stubborn, resilient, and determined to see how far he can push his father to get his way. In better words, Tomoki was the perfect example of a spoiled child, notorious for his ungrateful behavior. So far, the biggest problem with Tomoki was his constant demand for ice cream. Just about every minute of the day, Tomoki would find ways to pressure his father into buying him ice cream, a fixation that began the moment after Tomoki had found out that there was an ice cream bus that would come by the apartments every Saturday evening. You see, it's not like Sonohara was trying to exert control over his son and his childish demands just for the sake of it. It's just that Tomoki has a history of having a sensitive stomach when eating too much sweets. That having ice cream when the weather is cold, and especially before dinner, was obviously a bad idea. Which raises the question though, why is it that this ice cream bus has to come around at such an odd and inconvenient time? I mean, how can you expect to sell ice cream during the winter, and at a time where people would usually be eating dinner? Anyways, this really wasn't about some ice cream bus. It was about a father who was struggling with the behavior problems of a child. As I said, Tomoki was a very stubborn and persistent boy who knew that his father was an emotionally weak man because of a failed marriage, that there was very little patience and composure within him, making Sonohara helpless towards one of Tomoki's infamous tantrums, forcing Sonohara to go through such an embarrassing and unbearable experience when knowing that a scene would have close neighbors feel pity for the father and son. Let's just say that the struggle was now becoming too much for this depressing man. Just enough for Sonohara to lose hope as a father, and fully agree with his ranting son when he claimed that his mother's place was far much better, which is why Sonohara had decided to give his ex-wife a call the following evening and discuss some changes with child custody. Parenting can be quite a challenge, especially for a guy like Sonohara. After Tomoki's recent outburst, Sonohara and his ex-wife had agreed that it would be better if Tomoki was the one to make the choice of who he wants to live with. But for some reason, it's not what Sonohara really wanted. I mean, as a father, Sonohara knows that he isn't the kind of man who would give his son the discipline that's needed. Doesn't believe in harsh punishment and a good thrashing. Maybe it is true that raising Tomoki may not be the best thing for Sonohara. Maybe the boy needs somebody else who can give him the discipline that's needed. But as I said, it now depends on what Tomoki wants. And when the moment came where Sonohara had to ask his son that one question, if he would rather live with his mother or stay with his father, that was when the musical sounds of ice cream would fill the evening skies outside the apartment window and disrupt the personal question as Tomoki would offer his full attention to the sweet treats that would await every child within the apartment complex. Sonohara's ex-wife had thought of him as a man who didn't know how to be a stable father, that raising Tomoki needed more than compassion and care. Like any other child, there's also a need of good discipline. The very thing that Sonohara lacks, and why he will not succeed as a father. But looking upon the excited children crowding around the ice cream bus, that was when Sonohara had decided to give in to Tomoki's wishes by buying him some chocolate ice cream and let him take a small ride around the block within the ice cream bus. So maybe Sonohara was going about this all wrong. Maybe he was being too strict, overprotective. Why not give this whole parenting thing a different approach by having Tomoki enjoy some chocolate ice cream and join the other children as they take a 10 to 15 minute ride around the block, if he promises to eat his dinner when he gets back. Aww, such a father and son moment. Maybe this whole parenting thing just might work out after all. But when watching Tomoki join the other kids as they line up and step into the ice cream bus, for some reason, Sonohara had that horrible feeling within the pit of his stomach when the ice cream man had given him a cold and spiteful look. Sonohara did not know why, but he felt like there was something wrong about all this. And as our troubled father watched the ice cream bus drive down the street, Sonohara had that inner feeling that he may be facing something far worse than the results of bad parenting. It must have been about 14 minutes before Tomoki had came back from his small venture around the block, and riding the ice cream bus was the best thing that Tomoki had experienced. I mean, just as soon as he got on, there was like a mountain of strawberry ice cream, and everybody was licking it. You could even see how all the strawberry ice cream had given Tomoki a bright red tongue, eating all that ice cream, plus the chocolate ice cream that his father bought him. Tomoki had so much ice cream that even though he promised his father that he was going to eat dinner, he just didn't have the stomach for his father's cooking. Well, so much for Sonohara's new parenting technique for a spoiled and ungrateful brat. So bottom line, Sonohara is failing as a parent. Now, even though we've been taking a look into the world of a dysfunctional relationship between father and son, since the day that Sonohara had moved into the apartments, every now and then he would notice how some things were a bit off. Beginning with the fact that the apartment complex always had this strong, sweet smell to it. And even though it was nice to see Tomoki making new friends, other boys and girls who had ridden in the bus, Normally, the kids were hyperactive, free to roam wild, with very little to no parental supervision. One day, when one of the kids had accidentally ran into Sonohara when he was walking to work, I think that's when our troubled father began noticing how the kids were constantly covered with a sticky substance, like they had never showered within weeks. Come to think of it, Tomoki had never taken a shower since he began riding the ice cream bus. But when Sonohara had once again begun doubting his role as a father, and decided to ask Tomoki that serious question, the one that got interrupted by the sounds of ice cream, there was something about Tomoki's response that had given Sonohara that unsettling feeling. If Tomoki had a choice, if he would rather live with his father or his mother, his answer was that he would rather live with his father, because of how the ice cream man does not come around his mother's place. Sonohara just could not put his finger on it, but there's something about this ice cream bus that was not right. Which is why on the following Saturday, Sonohara had attempted to ride along with the children and hopefully ease his silly concerns. Not only was Sonohara respectfully denied on riding along with the kids, no adults allowed, but it was only for a couple seconds before the ice cream bus drove off, where Sonohara had gotten a good look inside the truck and witnessed a bizarre scene, something that left our troubled father with an unsettling situation. This whole time, Sonohara had thought that Tomoki was over-exaggerating when describing his time within the bus. But it was true that inside the truck was something unnatural. There were mounds of ice cream that was being licked by Tomoki and a swarm of kids. An ice cream bus that comes at the most inconvenient time of the day, offering kids a ride around the block while letting them feast upon an endless supply of free ice cream. Ice cream that wasn't even properly stored nor contained, but carelessly left on the ground in several bounds, to be eaten by all the children, which explains why Tomoki and many other children were all sticky. Obviously there is something wrong with this ice cream bus. Just enough red flags for any sane parent to step in and finally take action. Except, Sonohara wasn't the kind of parent who knew how to do something like that. You see, Sonohara didn't have the fortitude to stop his son from riding the bus. In fact, he had no control over Tomoki. That trying to get the boy to do something like eating dinner or taking a shower had become impossible. Even when Sonohara had tried threatening Tomoki from riding the bus again, had only ended with the boy promising childish threats of living with his mother. As winter had passed and spring had begun its course, that was when the world had become strange for Sonohara, because of how Tomoki and the other kids had never taken a bath and was constantly filthy and sticky. The entire apartment was literally covered with stickiness. The children around the area and their unusual behavior. Every now and then, Sonohara would find them huddled in some area, some corner of the park, licking each other. Sometimes Sonohara would find mounds of strange gunk accumulating in various areas of the apartment. Had a foul and sweetened smell to it. But on one day, when our troubled father had came home, greeted by a collection of shoes, the signs of Tomoki and his friends playing in the other room, the fact that the apartment was peacefully quiet was an instant sign that there was something off. And when Sonohara had stepped into the living room, it had taken Sonohara a good minute before realizing that he was facing an unremitting horror. It was Tomoki, in the middle of whatever remained of his friends, all of them, melted in giant mounds of ice cream, giving off the sweet smell of ice cream and rancid death. And Tomoki, unaffected by the reality that all of his friends had just melted and died, but was content with all the sweet and tasty ice cream that he could indulge himself with, licking upon the mounds of chocolate, strawberry, vanilla, mint, double yogurt, ice cream, my friends. Tasty ice cream for a spoiled brat. And just as Sonohara had a grip of the horrible situation and tried bringing an end to this horrible madness, the moment that our troubled father had grabbed Tomoki, that was when Tomoki's head had fallen off and went splat as it fell into the puddle of melted ice cream. You could even see the frozen expression of joy upon Tomoki's face, with his tongue sticking out, trying to get another taste of that delicious ice cream. Now, as an unlicensed psychologist, unfortunately I don't have much experience with marriage and family issues, but I think it's going to take much more than some counseling to fix Sonohara's problems. I don't know about you, but to be honest, I think I may have developed a sweet tooth for some ice cream.